Good evening, everybody. All right. I'm going to call the meeting to order. We're starting the meeting. Thanks, Chief. Thanks, Chief. Welcome, everybody. Sorry we don't have enough seats, it looks like, but welcome to the City of Mchenry Council meeting. I expect all the baseball players to stay for the entire meeting. It's very fun. I'm just kidding. So after the proclamation, you're more than welcome to leave the council chambers. It's really not that fun. So, clerk, can you please call it?
Alderman Santi.
Here.
Alderman Glass.
Here.
Alderman McClatchy.
Here.
Alderman Harding.
Here.
Alderman Strack.
Here.
Alderman Devine absent. Alderwoman Miller. Here.
All right. Stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. For the first thing on the agenda, the proclamation recognizing the 2022 Mchenry High School Warriors baseball team and announcing the week of June 20th, 2022 as Mchenry High School Warriors Baseball Week in the city of McHenry. I'm going to come out in the center here, and I would ask that the baseball players, coaches can come up. I'll go ahead and read the proclamation. We'll take some photos, and then we'll get council members also in the photos on the side. So, okay?
Guys like to know, what is Gavin doing up front? I don't know. I'm not sure. I need him between you. I don't know why my background is second choice. I'm shorter than all.
All right.
I
want to welcome all the parents, but more importantly, the baseball team here this evening. Congratulations to all of you. You know, it's a huge accomplishment, and we're all proud of you, parents, but the entire city. So the proclamation reads as follows. Whereas the Mchenry High School Warriors baseball team has exhibited consistency, confidence, and perseverance during the 2022 baseball season, and whereas Brian Rockweiler has provided leadership and guidance as a coach of the Warriors baseball team, and whereas the 2022 Warriors defeated Huntley by a score of 4-3 to win its first sectional championship, and whereas the 2022 Warriors defeated York by a score of 2-1 to win the Class 4A Northwestern Medicine Field Super Sectional to advance to the Class 4A state semifinals. And whereas we celebrate the 2022 Warriors on their record-breaking season by becoming the first Mchenry High School baseball team to become sectional champions, super sectional champions, and advancing to the state championship, finishing with a 30-10 record for fourth place at state. Now, therefore, I, Wayne Jett, Mayor of the City of McHenry, do hereby proclaim the week of June 20th, 2022 as Mchenry High School Warriors Baseball Week in the City of McHenry, and I urge all citizens to recognize and extend their admiration of this Mchenry High School baseball team. So thank you, and congratulations. Yeah, I think so.
Good job.
I got me. Anybody?
You gotta sign it.
I knew you all did.
Good? Well, who's all taking the photos?
Wait, Larry, give us a picture.
Logan looks like a exotic Arctic.
Chase, stop talking.
All right, congratulations again.
Are you in town?
Hey, we're good. I'm sorry, break it up. Thank you.
No problem. All right. All right, we'll go ahead and get started with public comment. These are items that are not on the agenda this evening, so if you have a public comment about an item that, once again, is not on the agenda this evening, this is your time to come up to the podium and state a public comment. We do not respond to public comments, but at this time, does anyone want to come up with a public comment? See none? Good music, though.
It was good.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started with the consent agenda, items 6A through 6I. I'm looking for a motion. No, any items that want to be pulled for separate consideration by council? Looking for a motion and a second to approve. 6A through 6I. Alderman McClatchy?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda. Nobody pulled anything, right?
No.
Okay.
6A through 6I, second. Alderman Santi?
I will second the motion.
Thank you. Discussion on these items by council? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman McClatchy,
Yes.
Alderman Santi,
Yes.
Alderman Glad,
Yes.
Alderman Harding,
Yes.
Alderman Strack,
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller. Yes.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started on the action items, 7A.
Yeah,
Eric?
yeah, so, this one's completely my fault. This item's gonna be, and the petitioner knows it, moved to the July 18th meeting. Two things. First of all, it's not listed correctly on the agenda. The item that's actually in the packet is for a tenant, commercial tenant incentive grant program, not a facade grant. So it's listed completely incorrectly on the agenda, and the petitioner is actually also asking for facade grants. So we're gonna be bringing the council two items for consideration in July, and that is the commercial tenant incentive grant for this amount and a facade improvement grant in the amount of $5,000. So instead of having it as two items and having the petitioner come twice, we're just gonna package it and bring it back to council on July 18th. So with that, I'm requesting that item not be, action not be taken on that item tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Next item on the agenda, 7B, is a use variation and zoning variations for 1508 North Green Street. Ross, would you like to present this item?
Sure, I think everybody's aware of this one. The petitioner, Gary Benning, is requesting approval of the use variation to allow the existing two-unit multifamily residence and detached coach house to remain on the property located at 1508 Green Street. The property will also need to receive approval of several zoning variations listed in the package to accommodate the existing structures. Just very brief, this did go to planning and zoning with a positive recommendation from city staff. Planning and zoning did change, went against the recommendation of city staff and eliminated the use of the coach house, allowed the multifamily, the two flat. So that's where we stand today. If the council agrees with staff, it would require a 2/3 vote of all members of the city council. So I'm here with any questions, as well as the petitioner is here as well.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna go ahead, you got representation with Steve Kuda here. Steve, would you like to step up to the podium, say a few words before we ask for a motion second for these items?
Thank you, Mayor Jett. My name is Steve Kuda. I'm representing the petitioners today, Mr. Gary Benny and Randy Noslick as partner. I've had an opportunity to review the agenda supplement. I think it really does a great job of summarizing the matter that's before the council tonight. I'd just like to make a couple comments. First, there was some, you looked over the minutes from the Plan Commission. There was some discussion about how long this use had been in effect. It's a house that was converted to a two-flat with a coach house that was used as also as a residence, and we were able to go back into the records of the Recorder of Deeds office and found a document from 1981, and in that document, it's an installment agreement for warranty deed. It has an addendum, and as part of the addendum, there's a reference to the current use of the property. It states, seller represents that the subject property, being 1508 North Green Street, continues as a 3-apartment rental property, or has continued as a 3-apartment rental property for more than 30 years, which continued use predates any zoning ordinance of the city of Mchenry. So this is the earliest document we could find. It's from 1981. It was recorded June 1st of 1981 of the Recorder of Deeds office referencing the use. So it is really, it's been a long-standing use, at least 41 years, and we think beyond that. My clients purchased the property in the late winter of 2019, closed in early 2020. There are also some various references to the fact that work hadn't been done on the property since my clients purchased it, and like we've explained to staff, closed in January of 2020, and then 7 weeks later, COVID hit and basically shut down the country, including Mchenry, and a lot of work that was being done for close to a year. My clients were working in the interior of the property. We're cited for trying to get some work done without a permit, and that's how this whole matter came before the city council. I'll acknowledge that the issues are really important to the city, and it's really something not new. We dealt with this 25 or 30 years ago, trying to make sure that the old parts of town did not deteriorate, and we would try to do whatever we could to bring those homes that had been converted and maybe hadn't been taken care of like they should up to a little bit of a higher standard. And this council addressed that issue back in the winter of 2021 when they adopted amendments to the zoning ordinance, which allows the city to terminate legal non-conforming uses, and that's what we thought we had here, a legal non-conforming use, but also gives the property owner the ability to come before the council, come before the Plan Commission, and to ask that use, that old use, be allowed to continue. And the good thing about your ordinance, at least from my perspective as an attorney and as a former elected official, it allows the city at that point to put conditions on the property and on the property owner. And those conditions allow the continued use, but then also dictate or mandate that the property owner take certain actions to improve the property. And that's really what's being proposed here. If my clients are allowed to continue the use of the property as a 2-flat and a coach house, which would generate 3 rentals, they would be in a position to make the improvements that the city has requested, and then over and above those improvements, do more. We've submitted paperwork to the staff indicating that my clients would have the ability with those 3 rentals to do more than just reside the property, put in a blacktop driveway, which is great, but to also put in all new windows. Basically, got the coach house, which hasn't really been improved as far as we can tell for 40 or 50 years, and make it a really nice place for someone to live. So we're asking tonight that the council adopt the ordinance that would allow the property at 1508 North Green Street to continue as a two-flat and as a rental unit for the coach house. We think it's a situation that benefits both the property owner and the city. I think we're all aware that there are various other properties in the area that at some point are going to go through the same thing that my clients went through. And this would, by putting conditions on my clients that are going to dictate and mandate that expenditures take place and that the property be improved, it really sets a good precedent for other like properties that are going to be coming before the council over the next several years. So I'm here to answer any questions. My client, Mr. Benning, is here. He can answer any questions. I know there's a lot of folks that want to address the city council, so I'll step down at this point.
Appreciate it. All right, so I'm going to explain how this is going to work. There's on item 7B, there's two parts, two motions to be made. The first one is going to be a supermajority vote, which means 5 members have to vote yes in order for that item to pass. And then the next item. Oh, right. So it's either one. So, or the second one has to be a simple majority, which is just 4 members of council. Correct?
It is correct.
Okay.
And then I would assume that you guys, if you make the motion, you're able to impose the conditions recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission or not. If you decide to go with staff's recommendation, you'd eliminate the recommended condition number 5. If you decided to go with the Planning Commission's recommendation, you'd keep the recommendation 5.
There.
Yes.
I could ask that maybe we take things out a little, considering this is a little confusing here with two different types of motions, possible motions, that we do the discussion, public input and all that before we make a motion. That way, we make one motion instead of making one motion and then either passing or denying it and then making the other motion. Why don't we wait until all the discussion is so that we make one motion?
So yeah, so we can open up for discussion by city council, and then we'll open up for the public comment for this item, and then we'll go back to a motion in a second. But we'll go ahead and open up for discussion by city council at this time. Mr.
Mayor, just to be clear, because this is split into 2 votes, we're only talking about the first one at this moment, though.
Yes,
First half of this
first half,
resolution.
yeah, so let's talk about the first
Just
half.
want to make sure we're clear. Then make a motion.
Then make a motion for that item, correct, okay, just like we, okay. Santi, go ahead.
Either Mr. Benning or Mr. Kuda, kind of reviewing notes from P&Z. A couple questions I had that I didn't just ask to make sure I have a understanding. Do you own any other properties in the city of Mckenna? No, I don't. Okay, could you
step up to the
podium? Thank you.
No, not in the city of Mckenna. No, I own some in Fox Lake and then.
That was my next question. So under any other municipalities? Okay.
Yes.
And those properties are within the city boundaries. It's not out in the outskirts. You said up.
They're in the city.
They're in the cities. You said Fox Lake, Round Lake.
Fox Lake, Round Lake, and then also Waukee.
Okay. And safe to say that those municipalities have ordinances, permits to follow along. Yes. Okay. Because it's a concern. I just, there was no permit for that work. It was already explained. Your attorney Kuda mentioned it. Were there fines submitted and paid for from that permit? Or
No fines, just stop work order, so they could just continue to until it got cleared.
And that's standard?
That's standard.
Okay, all right, thank you. Let's see, the other, there were definitely some things in the minutes. I'm not gonna go through all with P&C, definitely had some concerns. I think some of these do fall outside the boundaries of the discussion tonight, but it's definitely sure that we go through these processes correctly and ask questions of yourself, the attorney, or whomever at this point, and I'll defer back to you, Mayor, and other questions or comments, other, all of them.
Any questions for Mr. Benning? By council?
I don't have any questions for Mr. Benning, thank you.
Alderman Clark?
Thank you, Mayor. You say you had this property for 2 years now?
Yes.
A little over 2 years. How come you didn't do anything on the outside? I mean, how come it looks like it did 10, 15 years?
We waited for one of the units that became empty when the tenant moved out, and that was the coach house, and that's where we started. We put windows in it, and then just some other microphone, some other work in the.
What have you done inside the main building? What have you done so far inside the main building?
Basically just cleaned it out. There was rubbish, ruts, dumpsters, there was a bunch of rubbish that we had to get out of there. So we brought like 2 dumpsters to get rid of all that.
And
And then we did flooring, painting on the first floor. Second floor, we did painting, flooring on the inside.
your council said that if you don't get the coach house, you can't afford these fix-ups.
Well, that's gonna be, with the coach house, that's approximately $18,000 a year. You know, to go back into the project.
So what are you gonna do, say if the coach house doesn't pass?
We'll have to do some numbers and see what we can figure out. Just go to the unit, or I'm not sure what it's gonna be.
Okay, thank you for now.
Any other questions for Mr. Benning? Hi, sir, you can have a seat. Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions, comments by council? For staff? Alderman Glenn?
Yeah, I've looked at this, and I've seen these, requests, many years ago. You know, one of the things is, like it was mentioned, the fact that, at the zoning meeting, that, nobody saw any outside, improvements in the last 2 years. Well, you know, I've seen houses where people buy homes or whatever, or invest in property, and, it's not something that happens overnight. With business, there's business plans that have to be made and everything else, and, I think, some of the figures, that were given here, in the packet, show that, you know, let's face it, you have somebody that purchased the property, wants to improve it, but needless to say, he didn't buy the property without looking at some kind of return, as well as, looking to improve the property, in the long run. And, it's not the only property that's out there in that neighborhood that's like this. So, I don't know. I just feel that, we need to look at it as far as what would be the, how would you put it, nothing's ideal, but the best, decision we make, for the neighborhood would be the best that this, property would become. Just like staff was looking at it, I think as well. So, but again, I have an open mind. I'd like to hear what everybody has to say.
Alderman Miller?
So I understand the process. Clearly, I think we are all in support of the bring everything up to compliance process. However, downtown, we have more than a dozen of these properties that have been converted into 2 units with coach houses or above the garage living quarters. And I don't think that the intent of the compliance was to get rid of them. I think the intent of the compliance was to make sure that health and human safety was foremost, and that we continue to work with our landlords and our property owners to make the properties, as Alderman Gleb just said, the best they can be, given what they are. So, you know, here we have an existing use. Thank you, Mr. Kuda, for going back to the county records and going back at least 81. That gives us 40 years of history that this property has been what it is. I think what we need to do is support the homeowner and let him continue the use. And improve the use to make the property better. That's what we all want.
Any other questions, comments? At this time, I'll open up for public comment. You have 3 minutes. If you could please state your name and address for public record, and if you could come up one at a time. If you'd like to make a public comment, just go ahead and one person at a time. Come on up.
Thank you for your time. My name is Nancy Lesko. I live at 1505 North Green, so across the street adjacent to the property. And Alderwoman Ms. Miller, I strongly object to what you just said about making the home its best for the property owners. What's best are for this gentleman, thankful that somebody bought it, yes, that it's not abandoned, but it's in our home neighborhood, our heavily foot traffic neighborhood. It's in disrepair. To our knowledge, it's not zoned for multifamily dwelling. Would you appreciate a 4-flat across from your home? 4 sets of cars in and out all hours of the night, 4 dogs, one homeowner's tax base that goes to our school, our fire, our health, all the amenities that our home property taxes pay for that keep America great, that leads to character counts in our towns. If I didn't call the city and zoning about the truckload of drywall that came in, none of this would have happened. Because this businessman who buys properties and rents them out to people who are less fortunate enough than ourselves to afford a single family home and afford living in a one house, one family home, is making money off of these people with rates, I'm sure, that probably aren't the best deals in town, but he's a businessman that buys properties for a businessman. Well, a businessman that does this for a living should have known a permit should have been needed, but he's doing it sneakily and deceitfully. I don't want to live next door to that. He's not invested in our downtown footpath in Mchenry, next to the millions of dollars of the Riverwalk that we put in, that our city band concerts are at. It's hurtful that you say that we do what's in the best interest of the homeowner, because it's not in the best interest of our neighborhood. I'm sorry to sharply disagree with your words, but it makes me angry. That's not what I am as a citizen. I want to be a part of community. I want to be able to look across the street and say, boy, I haven't seen Mona's lights on. I hope she's okay. Maybe I better walk over there and check on her. But having multi-families living in less than ideal conditions, we've seen the inside of that house. The windows, the front picture windows have been broken for years actually. Giant rugs used as drapes. At the last meeting here, these people were not the friendliest leaving. Little couple words were exchanged, weren't they? A couple F-bombs dropped. The following day, the resident that was living in the upstairs started having words with my sister. Quote, take away my effing housing. You better watch yourself. I don't need to be threatened by my neighbors. Is this who you want living next door to you? Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes.
Maybe you state your name and
Yes.
address.
My name is Tracy Gonzalez. I'm married to Gary's partner, but I also am a member of the community. We've raised 4 children here. We were very excited to purchase this home because we love the improvements that have been made in Mchenry. We love Mchenry. We live in Mchenry. So when we had the opportunity to purchase this, we were thrilled that we could make a difference with the area that people are living. We have kids in their 20s, my kids' friends, looking for places to live. And I've looked around, and there are not good living conditions. We want to change that. We haven't been given the opportunity. We've been told, changes have not been made, but they're looking at what the previous owner has done. I've seen the work they've done. They've always improved the building to the point that we would allow our children to live there. So I feel like we will make that difference. We'll make the place beautiful like it was once. So we love Mchenry just as much as all the other homeowners in the area. We have every intention. We're not looking for this to be a quick money thing. This may be a retirement for us, but right now we're not making money off of the property. We have a mortgage, we have property taxes, and we're trying to fix the property up, and it takes money in order to fix that up. In order to have quality tenants, you need to have a beautiful home to put them in. So I disagree with the other owners saying that we're doing nothing, because it takes time to recoup your money after we're not independently wealthy. It takes time to recoup your money after you purchase something so that you can make it nice again for people. So all we really want to do is a chance to improve the town, improve the homes in Mchenry so they can enjoy walking downtown Green Street, using the Riverwalk, all the wonderful restaurants and things we have to offer here. We're just looking to do the same thing. Thank you.
Any others?
Hi, I'm Pam Kellogg. I'm with the Mchenry Area Historical Society and the Landmark Commission, and I took the liberty of writing up a brief history of the home as well as the builder. So I'll just read my notes if that's okay. The city of Mchenry, like all communities in our beautiful country, is the culmination of work done by many citizens. Throughout Mchenry's 183 years of documentation, there is an endless list of names that come to the foreground while researching our past. The list of contributors is extensive, but sadly sometimes forgotten. No longer here to speak for themselves, their names and contributions remain silent until the need for recognition arises. At this time, such recognition is necessary to preserve the unique aspects of our city's Old Town neighborhood and to perhaps set a precedent for future consideration and discussions regarding what was once known as Centerville and West Mchenry. One such name to be recognized at this moment is Nichols Bohr. Nick was born in Germany in 1862 to Michael Bohr and Catherine Schmidt. The family arrived in America in 1864 and settled in Deerfield, Illinois. In 1880, Nick was living in Kansas with his family, and by 1900 was living in Chicago with his brother George. Later that year, Nick was residing in Bolo, and by 1901, he moved into the village of Mchenry. At St. Mary's Church in 1902, Nick married Magdalena Schaefer, widow of John A. Schaefer, who died in 1900. Magdalena was also the sister of John J. Buck, owner of Buck's Place, now known as the Old Bridge Tavern. Nick Bohr was a cement and stonemason as well as a bricklayer, and in the year 1903, he built a home in Old Town for his new wife and stepchildren, located at 1508 Green Street. An article from the 24 December 1903 issue of the Mchenry Plain Dealer reports as follows. Nick Bohr's house on Green Street is nearly completed and is one of the best in Mchenry, which is saying much, for we have several elegant homes in this village. The house contains 10 rooms, besides several closets, halls, and bathroom, all finished in oak and cypress. The plumbing is all outside the walls, the pipes being bronze. The basement is divided into several apartments for furnace, fuel, vegetables, laundry, etc. Everything about the house is thoroughly modern, and the mason work especially is the finest in Mchenry. Mr. Bohr is an excellent workman in that line himself. He put forth his best efforts and took plenty of time in doing the work. The front porch is built entirely of cut stone, while on both porches the posts rest on Corinthian columns made of cut stone. Cement walks extend from the street to the front and back doors. Mr. Bohr and family are now occupying the house, although the interior is not entirely finished. The Bohr family lived in the Green Street home until 1911, when Nick built a new stone home for his family located at 3511 Broad Street, which also still stands today. The Green Street house was sold to Joseph Justin, who lived in the home until his death in March of 1936. Joseph eldest son, John, continued to live in the home until his death in 1954.
And we have 30 seconds.
Okay, I'm almost done. The Green Street and Broad Street homes are not the only contributions that Nick Moore made to our city. His legacy remains today throughout our vast historic district. In 1908, he did cement work at Buck's Place to accommodate new electrical machinery, and in 1909, he put in a new cement floor in the basement of the public school, Landmark. Other masonry work done by Nick Moore can be found in the Simon Stoffel home located at 3814 Main Street, the Marshall Merriman House on 4th Street, the John Kennebec House located on Richmond Road, and the Nicholas Justin home located on Waukegan Road. Nick Moore died in his home on Broad Street in February of 1923. The cut stone Corinthian columns at the Green Street home are now gone, replaced by iron supports, but thankfully the carriage house remains. In conclusion, the warm nostalgic charm of Mchenry's historic neighborhoods is due to the vision and hard work expended by early citizens such as Nicholas Moore, whose top priority was to protect and give comfort to his new wife and children, as well as to bestow something of value upon our city. Today, the range of architectural elements in our historic areas are a glimpse into our city's past and a reminder of those citizens who left their footprints behind, though their names only appear from time to time. Retaining Mchenry's historic appeal is dependent upon respecting and preserving the intentions of our city's founders and early residents, as well as maintaining the identity and integrity of our landmarks, historic homes, and neighborhoods. Thank you. And I'd like to say thank you to Danielle Miller. She is an expert on Old Town. Thank you.
Next person. Come on up.
Beth Taylor, 1501 North Green Street, Mchenry. I feel strongly about not changing the current single-family zoning at the house of 1508, and I made the top 10 reasons why I'm asking the City Council not to grant rezoning of the single-family homes. I'm an old home lover, so keep this in mind when I say heritage, historic, old, vintage, charming homes are limited in Mchenry and not a renewable resource and need to be preserved. Number 9, this type of zoning requested is not cohesive with the existing neighborhood. It never has been, but was granted around after World War II, as veterans came back and needed homes to stay and places to raise their families. That was 80 years ago. The current owners, number 8, risky investments in buying a multifamily, not properly zoned home should not take precedence over the well-being and investment of many homeowners in the neighborhood who have made the homes they reside, who have put work into the homes that they reside in, and this being one of the number 1 investments. Number 7, one owner and tenant have been hostile and belligerent since the zoning meeting on December 15th. Bad behavior should not be rewarded. The tenant walking across the street from us as my husband and I worked in the yard, swearing at us and raising his fist in the air from across the street on a weekend morning. Number 6, the lot is undersized for multifamily, 7 bedrooms, 2 in the above the garage, 3 in the lower level, and 2 in the upper one. The zoning and planning voted 5-0 no to the above the garage unit. Not one positive visible change has occurred in over 2 years on the exterior of this house. And I know that things take time and money. I lived in my house for 35 years. I was 22 years old. We worked our hands to the bone fixing our house up. But you can edge the sidewalks, put something down to kill the weeds, trim up the bushes. I mean, those things don't cost money, it's just effort. Number 5, if this type of special zoning is allowed for out-of-town investors and in-town residents, would the city allow me to build an apartment above my garage for added income? Or turn my single-family home into a duplex? If not, how is this fair? Number 4, the investors who have made investments in other properties began the work above the garage unit without obtaining any permits. As a homeowner, I am required to pay for permits and schedule inspection at stages determined by the city staff for safety reasons.
wiring and electrical before they're covered up with drywall. This was not an innocent or rookie oversight. It was intentional to skirt city rules. Have the owners paid any fines for these violations? I know you already answered that question first tonight. The answer is no. Number 3, allowing this partitioning multifamily, non-conforming, and against zoning practice continues, keeps these heritage homes out of reach for individuals who want to restore them as they were intended, as lovely single-family homes. At Building and Zoning, he stated that they were going to ask $1,500 for the above the garage apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment. To average it out, 3 units, $4,500 a month. That raises the value of the building. These are sold overnight from one realtor to another because they're investment properties. We're being taken advantage of by these investors. They're muddying the look of the city and the look of these neighborhoods by turning them into retirement accounts or anything like that. Meanwhile, the people who live up and down the street for years and raise their family have that blight or the constant movement of residents in and out of 3 units in one residence. We have, multiples down there. So there's always sofas and couches and things like that on garbage day up at a curb as somebody leaves and somebody else comes in and they sit there for weeks. Number 2, taxes. 7 bedrooms, less than $5,500 a year. Think how many bedrooms are in your homes and what your property taxes are. Does this seem fair? These property taxes cover our police, our schools, our streets, and our fire. If this were to go through, I would hope that they triple the property taxes to cover the costs for the residents living there and the burden that they apply on the city, as all of us do, using roads, city police, and fire. We are asking you to listen to us, Mchenry residents, community members, homeowners. Please do not allow this rezoning. It is a bad fit. There are new apartments being constructed in Mchenry now, with safety measures in place for fire and exits and egresses, without lead paint, with safe windows for children, parking lots that are paved. Help us maintain the character of our cherished neighborhood and the investments we have all made in the home.
Thank you. Ross, hold on one second. Ross would like to ask.
Do you own 3511 Broad?
Yes, we do.
Is that a 2-flat?
It is, but we're not renting the upstairs out. We are Airbnb it.
Okay. So it's short-term rental then?
If that's what you call it, I'm not sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome to visit our Airbnb site, see how many people come to Mchenry and rate 5 stars. Talk about how wonderful the town is, how nice the restaurants are. It's a welcome mat for Mchenry. Thank you.
Any others? I'm going to go ahead and have my city administrator here go ahead and count out the minutes, if you don't mind, so we don't go 6 minutes per person. So, state your name and address for public record.
Did you say you're giving me extra time?
No, last time. I'm just kidding.
Hi, I'm Deborah Lasconis. I'm at 1505 Court Street. I'm just behind the kitty corner to the property at 1608 Green Street. A little while ago, someone said to me, "Oh my gosh, you live in downtown Mchenry? I would love to live in downtown Mchenry." Why is that the case? That's the case because of the vision of the city council and the mayor. And Mayor Wayne Jett talks frequently about the vision that he and this board has for our city. It's because of that vision that people are starting to describe Mchenry as a hip place to live. Now, I've lived here since 1977, so thinking of Mchenry as hip makes me laugh a little bit, but I think we are pretty cool. Why is that? That's because we have a committee that is looking towards the growth of the business district. We have improvements like Miller's Point and the Riverwalk, and we have lovely, wonderful, welcoming, old, historic neighborhoods. I moved into my home in June of 2016, and the neighbors were thrilled that my house had been converted from a single-family home when it was built in 1900 to a duplex and then back to a single-family home. I immediately heard stories about how everyone in the neighborhood was thrilled that there would be one less duplex in the neighborhood because the property, my house, 1505, as a duplex, just like the property at 1508 on Green, was noted for traffic in and out too many people in too close of an area, high density that did not create harmony in the neighborhood. Allowing this property at 1508 to continue even as a duplex goes against your vision for the city. It goes against the city plan for the future use of that area, which is to go medium density rather than high density. Whether you can fit the cars in the little parking lot or not is really immaterial. It's a fifth of an acre property with 2 hulking structures. The coach house is 2 stories with a huge attic right on the fence line. I was actually accosted by Mr. Benning's partner from the window when I was walking out of the back door of my own backyard because it's right on the property line. Since the zoning meeting, when Mr. Benning's partner blasted through our group of residents and told us we could all go F off and F ourselves, I've also been harassed by the tenant who flipped me off and stood on my sidewalk while his dog was 2 feet away from my window and called me an effing C word, an effing C word, and told my next door neighbor that I was the bee that called the city and was going to get him kicked out, which of course wasn't true. However, this is the type of thing that you are approving when you allow people to move into these homes and rent them as multi-residences. It doesn't hold up with the plan that you have for our city. I would really like you to think about whether our zoning and whether this decision promotes the vision that you all have for the historic residential downtown neighborhood. We're in the business district. We're the residential neighborhood. We mow our lawns before the concerts on Thursday. People park on our grass and ask, is it okay if we park here? And we say, of course, welcome. We are ambassadors to everything that the city hosts in the downtown area. The only way to keep up with that integrity and to keep up with the integrity of the vision you all have for our city is to make sure that our laws allow us to keep these properties as single-family residences. One by one, this property should not be a duplex. It most certainly should not have 3 flats on it, but it really should not be a duplex. I'm asking you to think about that. I'm asking you to think about the heart of your vision for the city and for the good people who live in the neighborhood who take a lot of pride in being hosts to all of the events that we host in the downtown area. Thank you.
Any others? Usually we have people that don't want to talk over a minute. Seems that everyone wants to talk over 3. So at 3 minutes, if we could just get you to.
I'm okay.
Perfect.
I am Melissa Gassman. I have a primary residence at 2712 Rose Avenue, and I own an investment property at 1507 North Green Street. I have not gone through this process, so I'm here to listen to what's going on with them. We've had the property for about 18 months. We are also in the process of revamping the property, starting with things that you can't see, like fixing the boilers, putting 2 new water heaters in, fixing all of the electrical when the city of Mchenry's trees fell and took all of our electricity off of both of our houses. Putting in new flooring. We have had 1 tenant leave, and we are updating those as the tenants leave. We have 3 individuals, one who's lived in the property for 8 years and is a part of the community along with the other 2. I pay a large sum of taxes on my primary and on my secondary, and I very much think that those properties, when everybody bought their home, were there. They were aware of the properties and what they were. They understood what they were moving in next to, and now all of a sudden those properties shouldn't be the way they were on day 1, unless anybody's been here since 1908 or whenever our property was built. I think it's important to understand that some of us are not big-time investors lining the pockets of our pants, I think is quoted this week. But we are looking at ways to try to put 5 kids through college. We're looking at ways to build our investment property. We are not making any money currently. We hope to pay it off in 15 years and have a little bit of a nest egg. But in the meantime, we're trying to make the community better. We're trying to put young people in there. We may even put one of our children when they try to come back and live with us, and we don't want them to. So I think it's important that we don't just clump all of these houses under one assumption that there are a lot of different reasons people own these and have good intentions on trying to build the community the right way.
Thank you. Any others? Sir?
City Council. My name is Charles Nichols. I live at 1511 North Green Street. I was the sole person here 2 weeks ago, actually.
Welcome back.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Yeah, I heard about this property and this situation recently, and I recently purchased my property in January of this year. This was just brought to my attention about 2 weeks ago. So when I looked at this, is this decision that you guys are making potentially affects several coach houses in the city. It's not just an isolated incident for one single place. It is now pressing a precedent for future coach houses as well. This could be a shock for many of those owners, as many of them are currently using them as rentals, currently probably using them as sources of income. In terms of inflation, this could be detrimental to their immediate financial and in the future, their future financial growth as well. These homeowners are purchasing these properties with the intention of continuing the use of what they've always been used for as proven over 40 years. These are being followed up with heavy financial burdens towards the actual properties themselves to make quality updates and renovations. This could raise the value of these said properties, helping the neighborhood. This could also entice people to live in the community and within walking distance to several of the new renovated areas that we have in downtown Mchenry as well. So this is going to bring families a lot closer to our downtown area, where I think a lot of the activities are happening, where we want a lot of small local businesses to feel the support, and we're giving them a lot of support by offering these houses to people who would like to live in. And honestly, that's the reason that we purchased our property too, is because of the area that it is in. I think this attracts many, many people, and I think you're going to get some quality residents out of that as well. I do understand the concerns that the neighborhood has with the individual properties, again, like the outside and stuff like that, but with looking back at what happened, and they've mentioned as well, he purchased this property 2 months before COVID happened. That could have had a severe consequences on just the amount of work that are able to be done at that property. So I think that's not something that we should be holding against them at this point as well. In conclusion, I do think the property owner has quality intentions of producing a high quality place for several people to live, and that will take time. It will. The owner is trying to use the structure for similar reasons that it has been used in the past decades as well, again, providing housing for people and families similar to mine. And I, again, think that this could have a negative effect on current residents, future residents, and the city in general, by impacting potentially real estate values, taking away some traffic from small businesses in the downtown area that we see. And these issues that we hear from the community seem very isolated, like I said, to one property. But at the end of this does have far-reaching consequences for a lot of people in Mchenry. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Any others? Sir?
John Hanson, 1507 Court Street. I've been living behind us at Taj Mahal since 21 years now. I have no problem with improvements. I've watched the chimney fall in my yard. I've watched them flood my yard. Everybody says they're going to fix it, put high renters in there. Why can't we do something to make sure this happens? 3 families, that's too much on one property. I've had a knife pulled on me. They've caught them stealing gas. This is nothing against the new owners, the old owners. Once renters move in, you have no say. You guys know as well as I do, it takes way too long to get rid of a bad renter. I wouldn't even know this was going on if the one partner didn't yell at me over my fence and I didn't even know who he was. I'm like, he goes, which one of you, whatever he said, I don't want to put words in his mouth, is going to give me a hard time. I'm like, who are you? So, I mean, you guys compromise with a split house and leave the coach house go. I think that's fair. I mean, follow the own zoning rules here. I mean, it's terrible. I told you guys last time. It's like Jerry Springer. I have a 6-foot fence and a camera on every angle of my property. I'm afraid of nothing. I got them coming in my yard. It is what it is. You got 3 families. They fight among each other. I hope they do fix it up. That coach house is in bad shape. The wall was being held up with a steel cable, and I didn't even know that until one of the workers told me. It was literally pulling away. Anybody inspected that? Where are we at? They were doing improvements. I was glad to see it. I did not know there was no permits because I'm not around too much, and we do try to mind our own business. I mean, you guys got questions for me? I've been there 20 years. It's getting old. Nothing's changing. You guys wouldn't want to live by this. I understand it's a rental. I'm fine with it being a rental. But something's got to be done. 3 families new extended family sneaks in and everything else. And yes, there's other properties that are in the neighborhood with those coach houses. I get it. Everybody's talking about it. That's the way it's been. Well, the zoning laws have changed, correct? So that to me is not an argument. I mean, if it passes, it passes. I'm gonna keep on doing what I'm doing. I've been trying to fix up my house. You guys know it's expensive. Like I said, I live right behind it. Had to put up a 6-foot fence because of that. It gets old. None of you would want to be dealing with this. But I understand where we are. There's gonna be rentals, and I'm fine with that. We've always worked with that. But as far as the, people harassing us about us coming here, come on. Seriously? They have their say, I have mine. I don't even know who they are. I mean, they're sure they're great people. 30 seconds. You guys have any questions for me about what's been going on over there or no? We good?
Okay.
All right. Good seeing y'all. Thanks.
Next person?
Tim McCann, 3507 Broad Street. So I want to kind of echo what my neighbors have been saying. I mean, the reason we're here is because zoning is required to change. So we have the right to come and speak about what we want to change, right? So we have the right to say, when 3511, whatever it was, where Beth and Walter took over now, people used to walk out the back door and urinate, right? Because that's the kind of people they had. When Beth and Walter took over, they took care of all the violations that were there when they bought it. It's a clean place. Hopefully these people will do the same thing, but what have they done? 2 years, yes, COVID. Oh my God, COVID, we stopped COVID, right? What have you done since the zoning board? I bet you they haven't done a dime since the zoning board. You know why? Hey, because it costs money. It's a spreadsheet business. We talked about it at the zoning board, hardships. Why is their hardship of money, or the people across the street that are doing construction without a permit as well, their hardship worse than our hardship of the people behind them? Why does she have to have somebody come walk around the block every day and cuss at her? That's not right. We can stop this stuff. Like he said, yes, okay, it has to be two houses, a two flat. Have you looked at the plat? This thing is a foot off the property line. The lady to the south said somebody came flying through her fence 15, 20 years ago and walked away and never took care of the fence. That's the type of stuff we deal with. Now, if they were doing improvements and had done improvements for the last 4 months when they kicked this thing down, the can down the road here, that's a different story, but it stopped. It's all about a business, and this is our residence. Okay? Beth and Walter took over that place. It's clean. It's immaculate. They care about the neighborhood and they're living there, and that's going to be what it is. And maybe it sells as a single family home. But all these other places, oh, I bought an investment property and I can't afford to take care of it. That's a bad business plan. That's not my fault. I bought Bitcoin at 65,000 and I'm down. Are you going to help me out with that? That's not how this works. So it's a bad business plan. Zoning, we get to come in here. That's great that the zoning was at 884, but correct. We have new zoning laws. So that's why we're here. And again, the only reason we're here is because they were doing illegal construction. They got caught. There was a non-occupancy. It was, you can't occupy. And now they're trying to put it back together. And so it's just help us maintain our neighborhood. If it's a two-flat, that's fine. If he can't afford to keep it as a two-flat, the housing market is crazy. You got realtors in the office. Sell it. Make your money and move on. But why do we have to have somebody living there 6 feet above the fence? He can't put an 8 or 10 foot fence up because zoning won't allow him to do that. But you're going to allow somebody to live above the fence? How's that right? I got a place behind me that you guys put in, that veterans home, whatever it is. It's 60 feet above my fence. So I got to put plantings in to screen myself. It's enough. Yes, they're old homes. Yes, we understand it. We prefer them to be single family, but you don't have to maximize it with it. It's ridiculous. It's a small slot in the neighborhood. You look across the street and say, there's an illegal one. That makes sense. That's ridiculous. Walk around the neighborhood and see. You can tell, obviously, which ones are rentals.
Thank you. Anyone else? Come on up.
Hello, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Mayor Judd, council members, thanks for being here. My name is Walt Taylor. I live at, not 35, but 1501 Broad Street. For transparency, Ross, we do own the 3511 house, and we fixed it up, not formally rented out, but it's an Airbnb and stuff, and, my son plans on taking that over soon. This place, it's been going on for 35 years, I guess just a lot of spillover into the neighborhood constantly. It's on a very small postage stamp lot with, big property on it. If you can imagine, if you get, say, 3 families, 4 or 5 each, 8, 9 cars, the whole yard will have to be a parking lot. But we've seen the spillover in the past, and there have been police, and way back when, maybe check 10 years back, whatever, but I remember the SWAT teams running across back and forth the street. This must have been 15 years ago. We were told to get inside. They were all in the bushes by our house, and that got fixed. But I guess my thing is, if it's going to be permitted or whatever, for duplexes, there's a lot around, and I don't know what the ROI intention is, but you can make money off a duplex. It doesn't have to be a 3 flat on a postage stamp lot. But I think my big concern about everything is the safety, and these old structures, a lot of them, I don't know if this one is, but the balloon framing on these houses, that's where the studs just go all the way up. They had old timbers strong. And I know a lot of single family have that too, but when you're doing the duplex, you've got, the kitchen upstairs, kitchen downstairs, double the appliances, double a lot of things, water heaters, whatever. So I don't know if you have anything as far as putting fire stops in, meaning if you're gonna have to re-side it, maybe you could peel it off, usually under that's the old chipboard siding, take some of that out, put some fire stops in between the walls to prevent that thing from going up like a matchstick, at least on the first floor, So those kind of things concern me. Also, it seems like you've done some work as far as, I know Mchenry's home rule now, so you can do different things, maybe look at different communities, how they're handling it. The other thing I've seen about the balance of the neighborhood is we have now some apartment buildings on the side of veterans' home and trying to blend between urban and residential. But what's been happening with us, I've noticed, is that while we have the the buildings on the outside, and now you have them all on the inside, I think the neighborhood's having a hard time as far as staying residential and single family residential, and I think it's just losing some of its identity, which I've noticed. So I think the balance is a little out of whack. I know I have 15 seconds, but somebody else can have it. I'm done. Thank you for listening, everyone. Thank you.
Next.
Hi.
Hello.
I don't even live in this neighborhood, but I had to come when I heard about this. Okay, I'm Cynthia Locke. I live on Riverside Drive. Why am I talking? I don't even live in this neighborhood. But I live for these downtown neighborhoods. And I've never met Deb, but I want to. And what she said to you is what so many of us feel. This town is not in decline as it was in the 80s and the 90s, and maybe the early 2000s. This town is moving on up in so many wonderful ways because of the efforts of so many people. We are thinking big. We are looking at being big leagues. You would have never told me there'd be a comedy club on Green. I would have said, what? Okay, Riverwalk, this town doesn't need to start destabilizing its single-family zone neighborhoods. This is a neighborhood that can attract people that want to plant roots, just like the many families that some of us remember who came here in the 50s. And they came because they wanted to live in this town for what it had. They wanted to plant their roots. They wanted to stay. You have got the opportunity to be very careful in your decision-making tonight and to look really hard at the integrity of not just this neighborhood, but some of the other great neighborhoods in Mr. Santee's ward. These neighborhoods have identities. We as a town, realtors, we can sell those identities. We can sell those neighborhoods, we can get back the populace that we need that's going to support and be employed and shop and eat and put down money in this town because they're rooted here. We've got to be careful about destabilizing single-family neighborhoods and turning them into something that even your zoning code said they were never meant to be. So if you've got these people out there, yeah, maybe you want to work with them, but I think you want to look really long and hard about what are you going to do with the idea of the integrity of a neighborhood being primarily single family, because those homes will get bought by people who want to plant their roots, and they will put money in, and they will put sweat equity in. So I guess what I'm saying is, don't hurry yourself as you make this decision. Really stop and ask yourself, what is the best resolution for this? Of course, they have every right to ask for this variance. I am asking you to really think hard about the stabilization and the continued growth and success of this and other downtown neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person?
Dave Bauer, 3614 Grand Avenue. I live behind Montini School. I told Mr. McClatchy I wasn't going to speak tonight, but now, after hearing everything that's been said, everyone's referencing 40 years ago. Well, 40 years ago was okay to have what they had. Well, who's to say that city council didn't make a misstep back then? There's been a lot of missteps over the year. I can tie that into my property. I don't live anywhere near where this place is at, but in my neighborhood down Grand Street, down Grand Avenue, everyone has off-street parking in front of their house. It's all blacktop all the way down. That's our drainage. There's no culverts. So the way that ties in, this last year I applied for a permit to replace my driveway apron and the off-street parking in front of my house. I dealt with the Public Works, and he can attest to this, and Mr., I don't want to butcher your name, Mr. Perlecki. Sorry. They told me that the city council had passed an ordinance, they wanted to get rid of off-street parking. Okay, so the previous council, whoever, when my neighborhood was put in, must have made a misstep, and now it got corrected. So who's to say back in 81, saying that property was good to do whatever they wanted? Who's to say that's not a misstep back then? We can correct that misstep right now. That's all I had to say, thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Next person?
Hi, my name is Kim Payton. I'm 1504 Spring Street. And my concern is I have a 10-year-old. She plays outside all the time. She's been approached twice by 2 different tenants that live there. And I just want it to be safe. So that's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? All right, I'm going to end public comment for this item. Going back to city council. Any questions, comments? Alderman McClatchy.
Yeah, I've got some comments and a motion. We live in a great city. Our downtown business district is growing with many new things coming. We are leaving behind the true essence of Mchenry. Our residents that live a few blocks from Green Street, Riverside Drive, and areas 4 and 6. Our very historic downtown residential zoning is being taken advantage of. And yes, we've been looking the other way, but it's time to fix it. I have no problem with someone buying a home and renting it out. But the impact of these multifamily rentals are making an impact on the whole city. Yes, we as a city look the other way and kick the can down the road. The road should end right now. It is time to act instead of reacting to the takeovers of our neighborhoods. It is time to act as a governing body. We were all elected to make Mchenry a better place to live, not to let loopholes fill the pockets of people looking to make money off of multifamily homes. This is my motion. I move that the requested use of 1508 North Green Street be denied on the basis that it is either illegal or a grandfathered use that was discontinued, and have staff be directed to prepare a document for council to review and approve amortizing similar uses in the neighborhood. In other words, if it's not conforming now, we'll let it go until it's sold. And once it's sold, it reverts back to RS4.
Okay, so Alderman McClatchy had made a motion to decline, we'll say B1, portion of the item, which is needed for a supermajority vote. Is that correct? Yes. Is there a second?
Without a second, the motion dies.
Yep, the motion dies. I'm looking for a motion and a second to approve. The first item is, City Council wishes to grant petitioner's original and full request, then a motion to approve an ordinance granting a use variation and zoning variations for a two-unit multifamily building and detached coach house at 1508 North Green Street. Once again, a supermajority vote of the City Council is required. I look for a motion. Alderman Glenn?
I'll make that vote.
Thank you.
Alderman Glad, would your motion include, imposing the conditions recommended?
Yes.
With the exception of, 5, which was, that the detached coach house had to be converted into just a garage.
That's the second motion.
No, that's talking about the four recommendations, that the petitioner shall pave the gravel driveway, shall repair or replace any damaged siding. All work shall be completed within 1 year of approval by City Council, and that the petitioner shall make any repairs or improvements to the property as determined by the zoning administrator.
Alderman Glad, do you agree with that?
Yes.
Do I have a second? Alderman Stanchi?
I will second the motion.
Right. Open up for discussion by City Council. Alderman McClatchy.
Trish, could you read the motion?
Well, the motion is stated as follows on the actual agenda. All we're doing is imposing the conditions for staff.
So what we're voting on is including the coach house.
Including the
coach. Okay.
And so if I could just clarify, and Jennifer, you can correct me. So there's two motions provided here for council's consideration tonight. It's one or the other that council's making a decision on. As they're listed on the agenda that the public can see, I'm just clarifying it for the public's well-being, is if council wishes to grant the petitioner's original and full request, then that's the motion that was just made. And supermajority vote is required on that because that would be against what the planning commission proposed. And or if that one fails, another motion could be made, which is the second one listed in here, which would be to agree with the planning and zoning commission. And a simple majority, meaning the majority of council here, would be required to pass that motion. So there's not two separate things they're voting on. It's one thing. It's either the original request, which is not what planning and zoning approved, which was just made, or they'll be approving what planning and zoning approved.
Correct. And if the pending motion that's been made and seconded passes, there'd be no need to, we just move on.
Okay. Alderman Stratton?
Just to clarify the additions to that from the planning and zoning recommendation, does that include the structure of improvements that was made on the planning and zoning recommendation? Because I believe that recommendation was actually listing those repairs being made and listed in that. I just want to make sure we're clear on the motion.
Those are the conditions that the planning and zoning commission put on it.
So what we saw in the packet, the $60-some thousand were the repairs that were going to go into that building, will be required by the petitioner to make those improvements.
The driveway, the siding, those those all have to be done within 1 year.
Got it. Just wanted to make sure that was clarified. Thank you.
And also at zoning, staff said that, these things are done within 1 year, reverse back ours before, right? Well,
Yeah, I don't, that's not in the motion or in the conditions.
well, it came up at the city zoning.
You can add that to your motion.
I mean, it would be, ultimately, we would probably take legal action, but ultimately, it's not done. Full occupancy. But I don't think there's a reason why they wouldn't get it done. I mean, obviously, we have means to enforce it if it's not done. So.
One thing I wanted to, two things I wanted to mention. Number one, what I keep hearing about is zoning. When all these uses started, in that neighborhood, and all these buildings went up, there was no zoning in the city of Mchenry. Zoning was created, I believe, in the late 80s, and, basically it was, a lot of the zoning of the city was done by the size of the lots, and it wasn't a lot looked at as far as what type of structures were on each one of those lots. It was just the size of the lots. And zoning isn't, it's there to organize the city. It's not there to penalize those that own property to take away from their rights that they had. For many years, properties such as the one we're discussing have sat out there, and nobody has ever complained. I've heard complaints about threats, the looks of buildings and everything else, but I'm sure if I ask the police chief, he probably doesn't have a big long list of complaints, as far as threats. Building and zoning hasn't had too many complaints, I don't think, as far as the looks of that building or any others in the neighborhood. Granted, we have staff to look at that stuff, but we also have the visual of all our residents to look at it and report it if they see problems, like the one lady did about the building permits. We're not going to catch everything and anything here at the city level, and I commend the residents that do watch out for their neighborhood. However, when we created the change in the ordinance as far as zoning, the idea was to control more of what was going on with some of these properties, not to take away their rights. I mean, how many people out there that would hate that the government would start creating ordinances and laws that take away your rights? That's not the idea. The idea is to control it, to make the neighborhoods better, to make the properties better. Not the property owner, but the property itself, because that helps the whole neighborhood. And my feeling is if we don't approve the entire proposal tonight, that we're actually taking money out of the possibility of reinvestment into that property, which, again, just improves the neighborhood. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Alderman Sampson, go ahead.
Thank you. There were definitely a lot of concerns brought up, some viable concerns that this neighborhood brought up, and I have to look at this and try to measure what's best. One statement that I go by for many years, and I was taught this by previous people on this side of the table, is what's best for the city as a whole. And we come to this scenario tonight that there are multiple residencies that drop into this little, I don't know how to phrase it tonight, but the best I can think of is just this can of worms that has to be taken care of. And it's going to put a lot of pressure on a certain staff to now submit multiple letters to a lot of locations to get some of these variances resolved. And it'll have to be done in a timely manner. The first one is going to be the timely manner of this address. I've walked past it many times. I've questioned it. I don't live in your neighborhood, but I do live in a neighborhood that has older homes, has some rental homes. In my area, there's also a lot of business. There's definitely a lot of growth. There was definitely a lot of good, positive conversation about how we've achieved some levels downtown in regards to people are positive and people are enjoying it. Yes, we'd like to continue this positive role, and I don't see this as striking down this positive feel. I see it as something that just has to get done. There are going to be multiple property owners that we're going to be have some discussion in regards to getting these issues done on their properties. And I know we have some landlords in the audience tonight, some very good ones. And those people have to be accountable for their properties, because that is their name on the property. And yes, it's very tough, as one of the gentlemen said, that if you've got a bad renter, to get them out. I've seen that up close and personal. So it's a tough battle, and this is just the start of it. So, I'm trying to look at this as best as I can, and what's best as a city as a whole. And I asked one question of people on staff and people I respect, and I gave them the scenario of owning a property and having a property with multiple tenants as it compares to one resident, whether it be 2 or 3 units. And everybody has expressed to me that it's definitely would increase the value when you have multiple people living at that address, or those multiple addresses. And to just off the bat, I don't know the number. I have no idea. But off the bat, just deny property owners a portion of their value that they've put into building and maintaining their properties to the best of their capabilities. We're hoping that they do that, but need to do that to the best of their capabilities. I just can't see taking value away from their properties. So with that, I'm going to express some definite concerns about what I heard here tonight and what I read from the minutes of the P&Z meeting, because one gentleman did speak about what I see as definitely a police issue, and that's something that has to be dealt with, at that time. And people need to report these things. And we can't have that in every neighborhood, any neighborhood, period, end of story. Can't have it. And I will just calmly and professionally look at these people in the front row, and with all due respect, there's a lot on their shoulders, and I think they got a big, right up front, thoughts and opinions of their neighbors, and these are all their neighbors. And I mean, as best as the capabilities with both ends, we're going to do our best to be good neighbors. And there's going to be a lot of pressure on these folks to get this done and get it right. probably gonna be about, 1,000 set of eyeballs keeping an eye on them. And it's a tough thing for me to say, I'm just saying it because I firmly believe that. And, I just hope there's respect on both sides, and this moves, this moves our city forward in the best way that we can do it. I'd love to be in a neighborhood that's all single family. I am in an older neighborhood. I do have rentals. I understand it. I get it. We have to keep an eye on them. I keep an eye on them. I make phone calls to these people a lot on this side of the table. And I beg for everyone out there to do the same. Because it's definitely a key to having a good environment in the city of Mchenry, and especially in a lot of these old neighborhoods. I thank you for listening.
Any other questions, comments? Alderman Miller?
So my only addition to the comment is I'm in support of the motion because I believe it is the perfect application of our non-conformity compliance. The whole stress of that ordinance was to identify properties that are non-conforming and bring them into a safe, compliant place, giving them this path to come to us and say, this is what I have, this is what it is, this is what I'm gonna make it, and let the city staff observe, work with them, and get it to an end. I live across from an 8-unit apartment building in a single-family sort of neighborhood, Old Mchenry. I enjoy the diversity that those residents bring. I enjoy the flavor of the neighborhood, having single-family, multifamily, duplexes. I enjoy walking in my neighborhood and meeting the people who live where they can afford to live. That's affordable housing, and we should provide housing to all.
Any other questions, comments by council? This time, ask Trish, please call the roll.
Alderman Glad,
Yes.
Alderman Santi,
Yes.
Alderman McClatchy,
No.
Alderman Harding,
Yes.
Alderman Stratt,
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller.
Yes.
Motion passed. The second portion of this will be removed. I do ask, since it did pass, Mr. Benning, if you can really think of all these people that are behind you. Work with them, get right tenants in there. The person that's in there now might be questionable, all right? And if they are in a lease, I would ask that you talk to them. And I would ask that you call the police department if there's any issues, all right? Immediately, all right? Mr. Benning, please, do the right thing for the neighbors, okay? Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is 7C, Peterson Farm Horse Barn, roof replacement, a budget amendment, motion to approve an ordinance amending the fiscal year 22-23 developer donation budget in the amount of $30,000, $39,000, or $78,000 based on direction from council on material options for replacement of the Peterson Farm Horse Barn roof. Director Hobson?
Thank you, Mayor. The repairs to the horse barn have been ongoing. Made great progress. One of the things that was not included in the initial contract was the roof, which was brought up, I think, early on that was not, that we, as staff made a pledge that we were going to do that. We looked with the contractor to provide some options. There are 3 options that are available. A really base asphalt shingle, a nicer architectural shingle for the cedar shakes. Obviously, read through, I did not make a recommendation because there's some varying opinions of where staff is at due to the monetary concerns and a number of other issues. I will say that within the supplement, I believe I made one misstep, and that was that the main barn, I believe I said the only of the roof, the historic silos were the only other building out there with cedar shakes. The main barn also does have a wood roof on it as well. So I want to make sure that I clarify that. But it's not a true historic restoration. Not every detail of that barn will be historic. We didn't put the timber floors back in. We put a concrete floor. We didn't use the boulders for the foundation. We used so it has that same appeal. We tried to as closely follow the architectural report from Anderson Architects as we could. There is not a recommendation for roof materials within that report. they focus more on some of the siding, trying to find light materials for siding and windows and doors, but not for the roof. I think there's, from a staff's point of view, there's some validity certainly in, we'll have a tighter, more tightly sealed building with an asphalt shingle, one that matches the house, that's an architectural shingle. But I will certainly tip my hat to the historic feel of a wood shake. That's why I put it back to you. I don't like to put council in that position where there's two varying opinions, one from the historic side, the Landmark Commission, and the Peterson Farm Foundation, and one from staff. But I wanted to entertain and be able to, I guess, ask any or answer any of your questions to be able to help make a decision. If council did ask me what my opinion at this point would be, it would be the $39,000 option, the nicer historical shingle that matches the house.
Open up for discussion by city council. Actually, no. Looking for a motion and a second to approve 7C as presented. With the number.
You might want to have a discussion.
Might have a discussion, yeah.
Figure out what that amount will be.
Sure, no, yeah, no, that will. So I'll go ahead and open for discussion by city council first. And just give us a second. You would always have to, we weren't gonna deny your time, so. City council, any questions, comments? Alderman Miller.
So I would agree with Director Hobson that the upgraded architectural shingles are going to give you the longevity. It matches the house. It's basically lower maintenance than a wood shake roof. Given that this is, again, a historical building, I want to respectfully say that, but wood shakes require maintenance, and we're not roofers. So that would be a never-ending, ongoing project. So I think if we can respectfully put a architectural upgraded shingle that matches the home and yet has an architectural look to it, not just a flat, cheap asphalt glass roof, I would think that would be a nice addition to the barn.
Thank you. Alderman.
I agree, and I've seen structures to where they put shingles on and over a period of maybe 8 or 10 years, they start getting leaks and everything else, even though they have a much better membrane base than what they used to have years and years ago. However, we did a lot of work to that barn on the insides because of the leaks in the roof from years back, and I just think something like this is something that will probably keep us nice and safe there for at least the next 30 years.
Any others? All right. Public comment, ma'am? Please state your name and address for public record.
My name is Michelle Peterson. I live at 1635 Park Street. As some of you know, my Peterson farm was my paternal family's homestead. It was Kenneth Peterson, my great uncle's wish, that this farm be used as an educational tool, that our children and their children could have the opportunity to see how life was lived before fast food, cell phones, video games, before there were 2 or more cars in every driveway. What rural life really meant, the benefits and the hardships, what happened when crops failed, diseases took our family, famine and drought. These are important lessons that our children of privilege need to understand. Life was hard. Life is a little less hard now. We're working on replacing the current foundation board with a dedicated and involved group. This is going to take a little time, and I understand that time is a luxury. I'm asking this council to afford us that luxury and opportunity to get our feet underneath us and start moving in a forward motion. I understand that the city is frustrated with the performance of the foundation. However, I want to assure you that going forward, our focus is squarely on the partnership with the city and the Landmark Commission. I'm currently investigating grant funding to assist in offsetting the roof of the barn. I would ask that the city give us time to pursue funding options. I know that it has been discussed almost ad nauseum whether the barn should have sheet or shakes or asphalt shake replica. However, part of the important aspects of the barn are the original characteristics, which include the cedar shakes. I understand that cost is a prohibitive factor. However, if we are able to secure enough funding to help offset the cost difference, would the city be willing to seriously consider natural shakes? I know that the city has spent a sizable amount of money to restore the stability to the barn since the aftermath of the microburst, and I assure you, no one appreciates those efforts more than I do. The thoughtful consideration to the aesthetics of the foundation, using a faux stone profile to give it the look of the original stone foundation, shows that both the city and the Tunnions care about this farm. This is why I beg you to give us time to correct the situation with the foundation, as well as apply for grant funding to help defray the cost of new preferable shade. Landmarks Illinois has funding for such things, and I'm working towards the October 1 deadline. I'm asking the city to consider alternatives to protect the current structure without committing to a material other than cedar shakes. And I appreciate your time and consideration.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none?
No, I was gonna ask you a question.
Sure. Alderman McClatchy would like to ask you a question.
Michelle,
Step up
how
to the
much
podium.
time are you looking for to get this extra money?
I'm sorry?
How much extra time are you looking for? October?
Well, the grants aren't due in until October. And so that funding probably isn't going to be available until 2023. So we don't really have, we don't have the exact deadline because we don't know that we've won a bid for that. We're attempting to qualify for them. So like I said, the bids aren't due in until, or the requests aren't due in until October 1st.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Michelle, Director, go ahead.
Real quick, sorry. The committee today is how many?
The Landmark Commission, or the Peterson Farm?
Peterson, right, yeah.
So,
What are we at?
I think there's 5.
Okay.
Now, there are some issues with that.
Yeah.
So we are working towards rebuilding that.
And what's the goal? Do we have a number in regards to on committee?
What do you mean?
I mean, we look at 9, 12, any idea of what we're looking
You
for?
mean people?
Yeah.
So you have to have 3 officers.
Okay.
That's required, and 2 members. We're hoping to get to 10.
Okay.
But I think that's kind of a lofty goal.
Mm-hmm.
But I think eventually we would get there.
Okay. Thank you.
Director Hobson, if council would like to wait, should we be waiting anyway on this road?
Well, I'm not an architect, but, I think sealing up the building is, with it being so open, what got us into this spot in the first place. The water runs right through the building, runs right through the foundation. Now it is a 4-foot board foundation and not the old stone, the stone boulders there. Again, I totally understand, where they're at. I would stick with my recommendation of sealing that building up so that we don't create any more issues. I think there's still an opportunity to apply for some grant funding, especially because that main barn is gonna have to be something that has to be addressed, in the near future as well. And so from a funding opportunity, there's just hodgepodge is a good word, I guess, of what we have out there. We're doing our best. We redid the foundation on the house, and we used like materials. We poured a new cement foundation or some cement floor in there. We put a new boiler system in. We're restoring windows, but nothing is completely historically accurate. And so how do you, if we don't, and that's part of the reason of bringing it forward to you the way we did in January, was because there was an imminent danger, I guess, of losing that structure. And so if the structure is not there, we don't have anything to talk about. And so, I've lived here my whole life, and I don't plan on going anywhere. And that is a significant part of our history. And I wouldn't want to lose it, but I think there's options for us to be able to work on different buildings in different manners. Just like we did with the house. Originally, the house had cedar shakes very historic structure, and they utilize it for historic structures. It has an asphalt shingle roof on it. I tip my hat to this tree. I understand that I would really like to see that building sealed up. I'd like to not have to worry about it for another winter. If the applications are due October 1st, there really isn't going to be any decision until probably next spring, and then remobilize it, where the prices go from there, what is the damage that's done over the course of a winter, do we put another tarp on it? There's a lot of factors.
Definitely don't want another tarp on it.
I don't want to put another tarp on it.
The funding, is it specific for a roof, or is this grant an opportunity to put it towards anything historic on the property, do you know?
Well, we had looked into
Sorry, I hate to,
specifically.
can you get up to the podium, sorry.
For the people at home.
There
Yeah.
are specific requests for roofs, as far as how the grant money is used. It's specified for, restoration. So it could potentially be used
For the main
for
bar.
other things.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I'd love to see us pursue that, because
Yeah,
that might
and
be bigger than this one.
Yeah, probably by triple at least, right?
It'll
Yeah.
be close.
So, I mean, obviously, this property, we put a lot of money into it in the last few years, or in last year.
Yes.
So I would agree that $39,000 for this property is the right move, get it under wraps. If something happens where we do get the grant, we can definitely discuss it further when that grant comes through. Let's face it, you never know with the grant. And I would hate for this property to get damaged more after we're already in the process of spending $250,000 plus on this property. So, almost right.
My concern is like yours, Mayor, that as much as I would love to be able to put that historic roof back on it, if you know anything about roofing, that is what is keeping that structure. The integrity of that structure is all coming from the roof and the condition it's in now. The risk is probably not worth the reward, unfortunately, in delaying putting that back on. I would love to see the same and understand, but the risk of more damage to that building in time, in a short amount of time, another winter is probably imminent.
If you know anything about grants, it also, it would for sure. That's a whole other thing, it's very interesting. And if you need help from city staff on the grants, we're willing to help. Derek is a good writer, he writes for me. Can't read everything he writes, but he writes it for me.
So my concern is twofold. One, I want to get it under roof Michelle so that the damage stops and we don't have an ongoing chase the rabbit process. My second concern is pricing. Roof prices have gone up over 50% in the last 12 months. They're continuing to rise due to supply chain. They have not come down. Other materials have started to stabilize, but for whatever reason, roof prices continue to escalate. So I'd like to move forward now. And if you get grant money, again, the big barn is gonna need help too. And I hope by our decisions, you, your family, and the foundation understand we're partners with you. And we want to do nothing more than preserve the farm, because we all been there. You and I went to school together, we played there, we get it. But I think time is the most critical factor here. And we know what we can do with $39,000, make it look amazing, button it up. And then if you get money, let's do something more amazing.
And did we look at any options as far as steel roofing, that would be impressive, to shingles?
The only initial prices that we got were so far beyond even steer, and
But I mean,
I love them. Actually, that was probably my favorite option, because we wouldn't have to do anything with it for a long time.
Like that.
But yes, it was beyond what cedar is at.
Yeah, and again, like I said, I'm not talking just any kind of steel, but actually what looked just like shingle.
Yeah, I did not. Only the steel roofs that you've seen on other barns, the straight steel. I didn't look into anything that was a little warmer architectural look to it.
I know they were. I know when ours did years back, started showing different types of features on their steel roofing, and I just kind of wondered. I haven't followed them for years since I left. When I retired, that whether or not they went into something that was like that. I know somebody had been talking about a rendition of shakes in steel that would last forever.
comments? Alderman Slattery.
I just wish we could find a way to give them more time. I understand, you know, like a deadline, but there's some way we could just give them a little bit more time, see how much money they can get for grant. So that's where I'm at.
If it was 2 months, I think it would be one thing, but if you're saying there's not even the deadline is October 1st, now we're looking at getting ourselves into another winter. And that's what really scares me. If it was just, hey, we need to get till September, okay, we're all right till September, I would say. We could probably put that decision off till then. Now, the only X factor there is you have crews on kind of on site, so there's remobilization, so that probably also goes up from there. But the fact of that award is probably not until 2023, you know, as to what Michelle had said, that's a huge concern for me.
And just because it's funded or approved doesn't mean the funding can still go through in 2023. So I mean, there is a lot of issues with grants. I mean, we all know how those Troy, Derek, you know, Carolyn. so money's never guaranteed until you get the check. So I think we all got to keep that in mind. Any other questions, comments? Alderman Strack? Make a motion.
Please, sure. Motion to approve an ordinance amending the FY 22-23 developer organization budget in the amount of $39,000 for the Peterson Farm barn roof.
Thank you. Looking for a second. Alderman Hardy?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Discussion by council? Clerk, please call roll.
Alderman Strack?
Yes.
Alderman Harding?
Yes.
Alderman McClatchy?
No.
Alderman Glad?
Yes.
Alderman Santi?
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller?
Yes.
Thank you, council. Thank you. So I am, you know, I would ask that you would come to you know, talk to Derek regarding the grant. You know, obviously they're a lot smarter than me, but any of the staff can help do that grant. And obviously that helps the city too, because obviously this is money that the city has to put out, it's taxpayer money. So if we can help in any way with that, we can certainly, we have a relationship with another grant writer that it would be better than probably some of them here. So we'll work with you on that. So you can contact Derek.
And we do have a little bit of the luxury of time with the main barn. That roof is in decent shape right now. There's not holes in it. But it is going to need a new roof, and I think that would be an excellent candidate to redo the cedar shakes on it, especially with the historic wooden silos right next to that. It'll be a great opportunity to try to, even if we had to submit a couple of times to make sure that we get it, we have the luxury of time with that barn.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate your time. Next item on the agenda is 7D. Self-storage tax. Motion to approve an ordinance creating a new Chapter 12 of the Mchenry Municipal Code, imposing a new tax on the tenant's privilege of renting non-residential real estate property for storage of personal property, self-storage facility rental tax, and Title III finance and taxation.
Yep, so originally I was gonna have this on as a discussion item. I wanted to give council the opportunity to discuss it, and if so chose to take action on it, obviously it can always be deferred or tabled at some future time too, but at least wanted to present it since we've had discussions in the past, and a couple of things. First of all is to be able to present council with opportunities for additional sources of revenue. That's one. The second one is, as it relates to properties transitioning from retail sites to rental storage facilities, self-storage facility sites. And as I said in the agenda packet, the supplement, we have a couple of prominent ones in the former Walmart and the former Target / Big R, Stock and Field, whatever it was last, sites in the community. And as council's aware, the potential, or at least in discussion of one for next to those, the former Kmart site. And we have a total, I think, of 7 sites within the municipality, not all of which were former retail sites, but are self-storage sites with over 1,500. We'll be pushing 2,000 with the former Target site once that one is redeveloped and open. But wanted to present this to council as an opportunity to replace some of the revenues. I gave some numbers in there. I'm not going to read it. I didn't memorize them, but you know, if you look at square footage returns for retail sales, facilities can provide us anywhere from $400,000 to $500,000 in retail sales at $300 a square foot. I'm sure Alderman Glab can correct me if I'm wrong or supplement it with some additional information based on his experience. But the point is that obviously we're not able to make those revenues once a retail facility transitions to a storage facility. At that point, we're just getting property tax out of it and any miscellaneous sales that they may have on the site. And so we did some research. Carpentersville is a community, at least relatively near us, and Attorney McCardle's office also represents them, that just last year adopted a self-storage tax. In fact, the language, the ordinance that is in front of council and the documentation in terms of guidelines for self-storage tax and the reporting methodology is exactly from Carpentersville. We just stole it and put our name on it. And basically what it presents is a 5% tax on the monthly rentals for those units. And then it provides also an option, which Carpentersville did, that we can or cannot do or discuss further, of also providing an administrative fee back to the owners of the facilities, operators of the facility, 5% of that amount. So it's minimal, but it's will be something to cover any admin costs that they may have to notify their tenants and collect and document and send those taxes into Carolyn and the finance department. So again, I identified, we're looking at, based on what we have and what's coming up, the revenues would be around $66,000. I would say they would probably push, that's based on 100 square foot or small facilities. They're not all small like that. Some are smaller, some are larger. I know that Carpentersville is in the range they're looking at. I talked to the village manager. They're really looking at more like $100,000 a year in revenues. But I wanted to at least present it to council for some discussion. If you choose to implement it now, great. If you choose to discuss it further in the future, we can. This proposes an implementation period of January 1st of 2023. If council chooses to adopt it, we could also, talk about it more as part of the next budget process if you choose to do that. But I at least wanted to present it to you for discussion, consideration, and if you so choose, a motion tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Derek. Derek and I had talked about this quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. I think it's important, as you can see on social media or not, a lot of people think we get more from these facilities. We actually get really zero. Property tax, which we get very little of, which is obviously something we all kind of share with the residents. But I think it's important that we adopt this tonight, and then we go from there. I have contacted a few of the storage facilities, one that's getting built as we speak, also the applicant that may or may not come forward to council. They are aware as well. So, and they got to understand too, we're not getting anything for them, from them. And if they're going to start trying to come up and take retail opportunities from us, there needs to be a price tag on that. So I think we need to adopt this, and I think we need to make a motion in a second and get this going. So, almost right.
Motion to approve 7D as presented.
Thank you. Second? Alderman McCutcheon.
I'll second that. Just to clear something up, this includes everything that's out there right now.
Right. Any questions, comments? Any questions or comments by the public? Are you sure? All right. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Strack?
Yes.
Alderman McClatchy?
Yes.
Alderman Harding?
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Glad?
Yes.
Alderman Santi?
Yes.
Thank you, council. Appreciate it. Staff reports were sent out. Any other staff reports?
Yeah.
You ever go one meeting without a staff report? Go ahead.
I haven't said anything in a long time.
You haven't.
I appreciate that, though. One specific thing I wanted to follow up on was one of Alderman Glass's concerns, and that's about the Main Street event this weekend. That we did have, again, followed up, had some conversations both with event organizers and with Walgreens. We're going to we'll leave that back entrance open for the entirety of that event. We'll block off so that you'll be able to exit out to Borden and to Crystal Lake Road. So we were able to make that change. So that was, I know council overall was concerned, but
But that's also a reminder that that event, will be happening this weekend. So they'll have food trucks and, some things down there. So if you have an opportunity, that's Saturday. Fiesta days will happen before we meet again, so that kind of goes without saying. The fireworks will be on Sunday. We're partnering with the chamber once again on Sunday the 10th. On the 10th. And then just an update on the spray cut as well. That's one that we're still looking, should be in by Fiesta days. Supposed to be delivered in a week and a half is what I was told today. So we've already started making arrangements. The parking lot will be expanded. We've got with contractors out there. That should also happen later this week where they'll start digging that up. So all those things are moving forward, as is the Riverwalk Construction is in pretty good shape. That should be pretty close to at least all the boardwalk, and the boardwalk being done by about July 1st. We're waiting to see on electrical and some railing. That's just manufacturing. We'll see where that lands. It's going to be close to that time as well. It could be a week or two after that for the railing, which is on the back side, not on the water side, similar to the right by the Riverwalk place town right now. So, all good things, but wanted to give some updates.
Thank you. Any other staff reports? None? All right, one thing I just wanted to say to staff, Jim Marcos reached out to me over the weekend saying that the parking lot was absolutely amazing. I haven't drove by there, but he texted me out of the blue and just said, he wanted to say South Riverside, so great job, whoever was involved in that, maybe several. But I just wanted to say, great work. And he actually is making them kind of think about what else to do over there, so always make some, we start making improvements. Obviously, we've seen business make improvements, so I think it's important, so I just wanted to say thank you. I have nothing else. City council comments?
That was fine. So it is officially open, South River parking lot? It is officially open? Yeah, we restored it. Yeah, to be quick. Okay. That's cool.
I went by there Saturday.
Yeah.
And it was no one's parking lot. Sunday. Yeah, there was nobody.
I didn't see anybody out there. So it is open. They'll find out real quick.
And most importantly, the bridge is open.
I'm gonna go do a donut on it.
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
Any of that, Mark?
Just kidding. Any other city council comments? That's fine, I'll pay it. Alderman Miller?
I just want to give a big kudos to Sean here. Pearl Street Market, if you haven't been down there, is amazing. Last week, the Renegade Sleigh, the park was full. There were more dancers out there than there have ever been. So I think good shift is happening in the whole market. The vendors are loving the energy, and I think we're doing great things down there. So thank you, Sean, and your team, and the Pearl Street Market crew for making it happen.
On that note, thank you to Parks, because they've been fantastic. The new shelter.
You need to thank whoever's in charge of the weather. That should be the thing.
Well, the weather's obviously played a key to that, but I will tell you that the rearrangement of the park and the shelter was a big change in shift. We moved things near the shelter, and we're utilizing the whole park, and it's working out very well for sure. So thank you.
I will say, I sent you a text last week from the park. If there's any way we can reallocate more picnic benches down there.
Only if we pull them from shelter C, which is a possibility.
There just is a need now with as many people coming down there for dinner. I mean, the lines were all the way to the gazebo for a couple of the food trucks. I think it would be nice if we could temporarily move picnic tables over that aren't in need somewhere else. And not even under the shelter, but just in the grass.
Okay.
Would be awesome.
Both the food trucks were sold out by 8:05.
Yeah.
It was a crazy night.
It's pretty.
That was out of town, but I'll be there.
It's awesome.
It's good. Thanks, Sean. Thank you. Any other questions, comments by city council? Looking for a motion to adjourn? Alderman Santi?
Motion to adjourn.
Second by Alderman McClatchy. Please call the roll.
Alderman Santi,
Yes.
Alderman McClatchy.
Yes.
Alderman Glad.
Yes.
Alderman Harding.
Yes.
Alderman Stratt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it wasn't the last.